Imagine having 3 hearts. You would think that makes you an absolute cardio machine. You would think you could outswim Michael Phelps while wearing a pair of heavy denim jeans. But you aren't an Olympic athlete. You are an octopus. And despite having 3 whole hearts pounding away inside your chest, if you try to swim fast, your main heart just gives up. It clocks out, takes a lunch break, and stops beating entirely. I am not making this up. The octopus is arguably one of the smartest invertebrates on the entire planet. They can escape locked enclosures, solve complex puzzles, and even randomly punch fish for absolutely no apparent reason other than pure, unadulterated spite. But this genius ocean animal has a biological design so incredibly flawed that 2 career scientists who spent their lives studying it actually published a paper calling its circulatory system a triumph of engineering over design. Basically, they looked at this animal's biology and said, wow, this thing runs, but nobody should be proud of how it was built. So why does an ocean animal, born in the water, spend almost its entire life dragging itself across the seafloor like a grumpy guy who refuses to take the stairs? The answer involves alien-like blue blood, a massive biological design flaw, and a guy whose grandfather literally invented the concept of the tentacled alien invasion. Let's start with the internal plumbing. Octopuses have 3 hearts because they desperately need them. 2 of these are called branchial hearts. Think of these as little helper pumps that exist just to shove deoxygenated blood through the gills. The 3rd heart is the big boss. It is called the systemic heart, and its only job is to pump the freshly oxygenated blood to the rest of the body. Why do they need 3 whole pumps? Because their blood is absolutely terrible at doing its job. Human blood is red because we use an iron-based protein called hemoglobin to carry oxygen around our bodies. Octopuses do not use iron. They use a copper-based protein called hemocyanin. This copper is exactly why their blood is blue. Well, technically, it is totally clear when it is deoxygenated, and it only turns blue when it binds to oxygen. But here's the kicker. This copper blood is highly inefficient compared to ours unless you are living in freezing, deep ocean water. For context, octopus blood carries roughly 4 to 5 milliliters of oxygen per 100 milliliters of blood. Human blood carries about 20. That means an octopus is trying to run a high-performance, highly athletic predator lifestyle on about a quarter of the oxygen payload that you have. It is like trying to run a high-speed Ferrari engine on a fuel line the size of a tiny plastic coffee stirrer. To make matters even worse, this copper protein is just floating loose in their blood plasma. It is not packed neatly inside cells like human red blood cells. Because of this, their blood is incredibly thick, syrupy, and highly viscous. It requires super high pressure just to push it through their veins. This is exactly why they need 3 booster pumps working overtime just to stay alive. It is a biological duct tape solution to a terrible fuel system. To cope with this, they actually outsource a huge chunk of their breathing directly to their skin. When an octopus is just chilling on a rock, roughly 41% of its oxygen is absorbed directly through its skin, completely bypassing the gills. They are basically breathing like a wet paper towel. But wait, the cardio trap gets so much worse. You see, an octopus has a hollow space inside its body called a mantle cavity. This single room holds their gills, their 3 hearts, and their major veins. When an octopus wants to swim fast, it uses jet propulsion. It sucks water into this cavity and violently squeezes its muscles to shoot the water out and propel itself forward. But remember what else is trapped in that cavity? The hearts. So, when the octopus squeezes its mantle to blast forward, it is physically crushing its own internal organs. The pressure is so high that blood physically cannot return to the main systemic heart. In a famous 1987 study by a researcher named Martin Wells, scientists placed live octopuses under observation and measured their blood flow. They found that during this vigorous jetting, the systemic heart's output totally collapses. It literally arrests. It stops beating entirely. The fastest, most effective way for this animal to escape a predator physically turns off its main heart. It's like trying to sprint a marathon, but every time you take a step, your heart takes a legally mandated 15-minute break. And that researcher I just mentioned, Martin Wells, he was the grandson of H.G. Wells. You know, the famous author who wrote The War of the Worlds. H.G. Wells literally invented the pop culture concept of the highly advanced, tentacled alien monster. His grandson then spent 40 years of his life proving that the real-life tentacled creature is actually way weirder and structurally worse than anything his grandpa could have ever written. Now, you might think, okay, the heart stops when they sprint, but they can just catch their breath afterwards, right? Wrong. Because of that blue copper-based blood, octopuses have a massive, crippling sensitivity to acid. This is known as the Bohr effect. When you work out, your muscles make carbon dioxide. That carbon dioxide makes your blood slightly more acidic. For us, it's not a huge deal. For an octopus, a slight drop in blood acidity causes their blue blood to basically drop all of its oxygen and refuse to pick up any more at the gills. The harder they exercise, the less their blood is capable of actually doing its job. The entire system just eats itself. When you push yourself too hard at the gym, your body produces lactic acid, which causes that familiar muscle burn. The octopus is so biologically unhinged that it doesn't even get lactic acid. It produces a completely different, unique chemical called octopine. That's right, they literally invented their own personal brand of muscle burn and scientists named it after them. And recovering from this octopine buildup after a quick swim can take hours. If they swim away from danger, they are forced to clock out for the rest of the day just to repay that massive oxygen debt. And because they can't swim without passing out, humans actually used to exploit this for entertainment. From the 1940s to the 1960s, octopus wrestling was a massive spectator sport in the Pacific Northwest of the United States. Divers would literally just dive down, find a giant Pacific octopus, and drag the exhausted creature out of the water to wrestle it in front of cheering crowds. Imagine being so physiologically compromised that a 1960s suburban dad in a Speedo could easily pin you to the beach. That is the reality of having an octopus body. You might think an animal this smart would eventually evolve a way to fix this fatal flaw. After all, octopuses can literally edit their own RNA on a massive scale to adapt to changes in water temperature. Most animals rely on slow generational evolution, but the octopus just hacks its own genetic code in real time. But they never fix their own hearts. And to make this evolutionary tragedy totally complete, most species only live for about 1 to 2 years. They are brilliant, puzzle-solving escape artists locked inside a body that gives them a heart attack if they jog, and then dies of old age after 18 months. So what do you do if you are a highly intelligent ocean creature, but doing basic aquatic cardio literally stops your heart? You quit. You simply refuse to swim. Instead, octopuses decided to just walk everywhere. But octopus walking is completely alien to us. Every walking animal you know has a gait, a left-right-left rhythm. An octopus does not have a rhythm. It has no fixed arm sequence. Its body orientation is completely decoupled from the direction it is moving. It doesn't even need to turn around to run away. It just smoothly glides off in any direction, effortlessly, like a Roomba. And because they spend all their time walking on the seafloor, they put their brains in their hands. Seriously, octopuses essentially have 9 brains. There is a central brain and a large cluster of neurons in every single one of their 8 arms. Because of this, their arms can act semi-independently. When they touch things, their suckers are also tasting them. Every step they take is like walking on a giant tongue. So every morning commute is a full-body sensory tasting menu of the ocean floor. But wait, the walking gets even wilder. In Indonesia, scientists filmed 2 species of octopus walking bipedally along the ocean floor. Yes, on 2 legs, like a guy sneaking to the fridge at 3 a.m. One of them, called the coconut octopus, literally collects discarded coconut shell halves. It rolls 6 of its arms around the shells to form a protective ball, and then awkwardly stilt walks on its remaining 2 arms across the sand. Think about how crazy that is. This animal has a well-documented cardio problem and exhausts incredibly easily, but it voluntarily chooses a slower, much heavier, totally exhausting commute, just so it can carry a portable house with it in case it needs to hide. The sheer dedication to never swimming is honestly inspiring. This absolute refusal to swim is so deeply ingrained in their DNA that humans have been exploiting it for centuries. In Japan, there is a traditional way to fish for octopuses using something called a takotsubo. It is just an unglazed ceramic pot tied to a rope. Fishermen drop it to the ocean floor and wait. That's it. There is no door. There is no complex trap mechanism or bait. It works entirely on the biological fact that an octopus will always choose to crawl into a dark, safe hole rather than swim away. And here's where this entire bizarre story pays off. In 1990, Japanese cardiologists were examining humans who had suffered extreme sudden emotional stress. They found a medical condition where the human heart's left ventricle becomes temporarily stunned. It physically balloons out of shape and struggles to pump. Do you know what they officially named this human cardiac condition? Takotsubo cardiomyopathy, otherwise known to the general public as broken heart syndrome. They named it that because a broken, stressed human heart bulges into the exact shape of an octopus pot. The animal with 3 hearts loaned the name of its own worst enemy to the way that human hearts break. So the next time you feel guilty about skipping cardio day at the gym, just remember the octopus. This creature was dealt the absolute worst biological hand possible. It has bad physics, crushed hearts, and blue blood that stops working the exact moment it needs it the most. It didn't fix any of these problems. It just built an entire advanced lifestyle around avoiding them. Having 3 hearts isn't a biological superpower. It is a receipt for millions of years of evolutionary duct tape.